On February 9th, 2024, a large landslide covered both lanes of Highway 1 along the Big Sur coast. This already storm-battered section of the highway was closed at Paul's Slide, approximately 6 miles south of this new slide, Regent's Slide. After observing and characterizing the landslide, a top-down removal approach began in May of 2024. Spider excavators and bulldozers were used to excavate a stable slope behind the displaced material of Regent's Slide. The cut slope would eventually extend down to Highway 1, approximately 500 feet below the beginning of the excavation. Top-down excavation of the weathered rock and soil encountered at the site continued through May, June, and July of 2024. The excavation began to approach approximately elevation 500, where a prominent and resistant band of basalt cuts across the project site. This layer became known as the blocky rock layer. It consists of many interlocking blocks of very hard metabasalt that are subject to catastrophic failures. Unpredictable rock slides failed across the bench, threatening the safety and stability of the work area, requiring the contractor to shift back away from the failing edge and excavate a new cut slope. Behind the threat of the failing blocky rock layer, work continued by excavating a cut behind the original cut slope. The offset cut would provide an additional safety buffer away from the failing edge. Unfortunately, excavation of the offset cut slope triggered a dormant landslide. The apparent features of the toe, lateral scarps, and head scarp gave the slide its name, the obvious slide. The obvious slide encompassed most of the work area and the natural slopes above the northern flanks of the project. As the winter months and rainfall began, the obvious slide grew, with some surface points moving approximately 40 to 50 feet in several months. Above the moving limits of the obvious slide, a pilot excavation began, with the intent of removing not only the displaced material of Regent's Slide, but also the obvious slide. Work on the upper excavation proceeded through May of 2025, when changes to the site caused by the excavation triggered another, smaller landslide, the southside slide. Rather than remove the slide from the top down, the southside slide was stabilized in place by installing an array of rigid inclusions, steel shear dowels consisting of steel bars in drilled and grouted holes. In addition to the steel shear dowels installed within the moving mass of the south side slide, an operation to install thousands of steel shear dowels across all of the newly excavated slopes on the project began. Through May, June, and into July, drilling, grouting, and installing bars was the primary operation. Steel shear dowels were installed within the moving mass of the south side slide and across the site, not only to stabilize the already displaced south side slide, but to reinforce the weathered rock that forms the newly cut slopes. Steady progress has been made on the excavation and installation of shear dowels as the work proceeds through August and September of 2025. Ahead lies elevation 500 and the blocky rock layer again. Experience and knowledge gained from previous attempts at excavating through this layer will be used to employ the best approaches. A combination of blasting, hand and mechanical rock removal, and the installation of a steel cable net drapery will be used to safely proceed through and below the blocky rock layer. continuing the excavation to the accumulated talus piles below, and eventually reopening Highway 1.